本シンポジウム最後のプログラムとなりますけれども、今回ですね、この最後のプログラムはパネルディスカッションとなります。で、引き続きましてパネルディスカッションをお時間、お残しいただきましたら少し質疑応答もお受けになろうかと思いますので、どうぞオンラインご視聴の皆様も、画面の方のですね Q&A の方からお寄せいただければと思います。で、このディスカッションの、タイトルでございますけれども、次世代革新炉と人材育成をつなげるにはと題しまして進めさせていただきます。ご登壇いただいております皆様を改めてご紹介させていただきます。本ディスカッションの座長は先ほどご講演をいただきました福井大学附属国際原子力工学研究所の宇野正義先生にお務めいただきます。よろしくお願いいたします。そしてパネリストといたしまして先ほどご講演をいただきましたアメリカよりオンラインにて米国原子力規制委員会 NRC のレイモンド・ファストノー様、そして同じくアメリカよりリズワン・ウディン様、そしてイギリスよりオンラインにて独立原子力コンサルタント MWA 社のマイク・ウェイトマン様、同じくイギリスより INS ジャパンのトム・マッキーティング様、よろしくお願いいたします。お二方に拍手をお願いいたします。そしてフランスより原子力産業戦略委員会 CSFN のエルベ・マイヤール様、よろしくお願いいたします。そして日本の現状をお話しいただく方といたしまして原子力規制委員会原子力規制庁の大村哲夫様でございます。よろしくお願いいたします。それではここからの進行は宇野先生にお願いしたいと思います。よろしくお願いいたします。
はい、どうもありがとうございます。それではここからやらせていただきます。今回昨日と違いましてちょっと時間が短いんですけれども、で今画面上にテーマが上がっております。昨日から考えてましたんでだいぶ時間がありましたんで今日の昼もこのメンバーに昨日プレゼンしていただいた方にも加わっていただいて人材育成における問題課題というのを挙げております。でこれについて議論する前にまずちょっと人材育成絡みでもいいんですけれども、ただ我々のプレゼンテーションというのは人材育成絡みだったので今日の午後あるいは大村さんそれからオンラインでお二人入ってますんで規制でも結構ですけれども何かフロアの方からあるいはオンラインでも結構です。質問がありましたら少しこの最初にお受けしたいと思いますが、どなたかフロアからいらっしゃいますでしょうか。オンラインでもいいですけど特にいませんか。じゃあもし議論の最中で、それぞれのプレゼンに関する絡みの話が出たらまたその質問をフロアからでもお受けしたいと思います。で、先ほど来我々でちょっと議論して出しました課題というのはここに書いてありますように、まずは育成する人材は足りているのか、そもそも人材育成の方法以前に原子力に来たいという学生とか社会人とか大学卒業した学生を卒業生が足りているのか足りてないのか、足りてなかったらそれをどうやって集めるのかという話で、あと原子力を教える教員が足りているのか、これは技術継承とも関係ありますけれども大学でもあるいは企業の中でも原子力を知っている人間が減っているという事態、それで、それとまた微妙にどれも絡んでくる話なんですが、そもそもここ大きなテーマで次世代の革新炉と人材育成ということが書いてありますけれども、次世代炉の人材育成をする前にそもそも原子力の人材を育成する必要があるんではないかという話ですね。で今日我々大学も企業も関係者も集まっています。でそれでその2人が合わさってどう言いますかその機関が集まってこれから人材育成をやっていこうということになりますが、当然そこには産学連携というコラボレーションが出てくると思うんですけれども、そういう意味じゃこれは日本だけかもしれませんけど特にリカレント教育リスキリングということが言われていて、それに対する取り組みですね。 それから最後5番目は昨日のディスカッションで、これを今日の方のディスカッションに持ち込むということになりましたので、サプライチェーン確保のための人材育成、それから導入国、新規国への人材育成という、大体ここに書いてある5つないし6つのことについて、もう時間もそんなにありませんから、上から順番に議論していきたいと思います。で、やり方としては、多分ここまでの議論で大体皆さんもこういう課題があるというのは理解していただいたと思いますから、各国の代表というわけではないんですけれども、まずは各国の代表にしていただいて、現状を軽く説明していただいた後、いわゆる対策ですね、グッドプラクティスはもしあればぜひ紹介していただきたいと思います。まずはウジン先生からお願いできますでしょうか。アメリカの大学の例ということ
です。So, in the United States, as I mentioned in my talk earlier today, the pipeline for the number of undergraduate students, for example, has been cyclical. And the good news is that at this point, actually, it is on the upward trend. Probably not enough number of students right now coming out of the nuclear engineering degree programs to satisfy the need, as we can tell by the number of students who are getting the offers, multiple offers, and then there is job hopping that also takes place, indicative of the fact that there is more demand than supply. And it is likely, depending upon the scenarios that we have seen in terms of the increase that is expected in the demand over the next decade or till 2050, it is quite likely that the gap in supply and demand will increase, will become wider. It is hard to tell at this point, exactly how fast the intake of, high school students coming into the nuclear programs will increase. It has been increasing. It has been slow. We have seen an interesting indication that, most of the high school students themselves, for example, are very eager and excited about nuclear, and sometimes they are cautioned by their parents, by their seniors who have seen more of nuclear's ups and downs for some time, and they are told that, okay, why do you want to do nuclear, for example? And despite those cautionary, words, these, excited high school students do join nuclear programs. What I would think is the best way to address the challenge in the short run is to tap into the pool that was tapped into back in the 60s and 70s, which is the non-nuclear engineering students. I mean, now we have gotten used to undergraduate degrees in nuclear engineering, but back in the 60s and 70s, there were very, very few, almost none, undergraduate nuclear engineering degrees. And the entire nuclear industry was run by the students who either did physics as an undergrad, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, chemical engineering, and so forth. And then they came into nuclear to do their master's degree. They learned the nuclear skills, and within a year, year and a half, then they were able to go into the nuclear industry and contribute. So I'm optimistic. I think if the demand keeps on rising like this and the word gets out, then most likely more and more there will be an increasing trend of students coming into nuclear. One last comment, in the United States, there is an impending cliff of the number of students who will be graduating from high school and coming into the university. So that drop that is expected to start in 2025, that is anybody's guess as to how that is going to impact the future workforce development in not only nuclear, but also in other fields. Thank you.
はい、ありがとうございます。わかりました。子供の数が減っているとは日本でも一緒かなとは思います。あとその高校生に向かって原子力の魅力を発信する、どこの国でもやってると思うんですが、現在アメリカではどなたがやられています？例えばですね、ちょっと前まで日本では ここに対して原子力の魅力を発信しようと原子力関係者が行くとダメだったんですよ。やっぱり 1F の事故はと原子力関係者は信頼できない。まあ親が高校生はそうは思わないでしょうけど親がやっぱし基本的には親が自分の子供を原子力に進ませないというそういうのがあったとは思うんですが、で最近になってやっぱし、それでも高校生が少し原子力に向いているのは去年の8月っていうのはあれは岸田総理が原子力の必要性を説きましたし、でずっと基本政府があるいは今回は我々の活動は文科省が直接というのもあるんですが政府がちゃんと原子力をやるんだというのを高校生に直接言ったわけじゃないですけれどもニュースとかああいう媒体で全国に向かって言ったのがそれでも親はそこどこまであれを信じたか別として高校生は敏感に少しやっぱり反応したというのがあるんですけれどもアメリカでその高校生に対して原子力はこれから必要だいいんだというのはどなたが言ってられます？
So it is falling up to the nuclear industry, the trade organization, American Nuclear Society, and the academics in the university who are doing the job of communicating. So, for example, universities have American Nuclear Society chapters run by the student organizations. These student organizations that are members and their members, they reach out to high school. There are science fairs that take place. Students come, they visit, and then there are nuclear engineering, booths at those science fairs. One thing that is clear is that the message has to be sent that it is an exciting field, it is a dynamic field, it's a new kind of technology. So, some of the arguments that are given, for example, are that look at the nuclear power plants of today, as nice as they are the ones that were designed and then built in the 1960s and 70s. This is before PC was built, before the computers were there. So the example given is, look at a huge, clunker Motorola iPhone that weighed like 8 pounds, and look at the iPhone of today. So the next generation of reactors, advanced reactors, are going to be like the iPhone of today compared to the very first generation of cellular phones that were difficult to carry in your pocket. So with that kind of messaging, and of course the fact that nuclear provides clean energy is making it very attractive. So that also is a point that is not lost on the new generation of the students. More and more students, high school students, who might have had negative or neutral perception of nuclear energy, as they realize the importance of clean energy and the impact on climate, they are becoming more favorable in favor of nuclear.
はい、ありがとうございます。iPhone が出た瞬間になんか SNS で政府が広告出すのかなとそんな話になるのかなと思いましたけどありがとうございます。参考までに先ほど高校生に対するという話なんですけれどもその中に大学生が高校生に向かってという話もあったかと思うんですが実はあくまでも情報ですけど日本原子力学会にYGN のヤングジェネレーションネットワーク若手のネットワーク会というのがありまして日本原子力学会の若手ネットワーク会そこがその YGN に所属する人の出身校に出向いていって大勢で出向いていってそこの学生に原子力とかこんなに魅力のある働き先ですよみたいなそういうことを今やる活動をしております。あくまで参考までです。はい、どうもありがとうございます。それではじゃあフランスじゃなくてごめんなさい。イギリスの例をお願いいたします。
Thank you. Just some general thoughts, really. I think we have to look at it in the context of a general background of lack of engineering and science students. It's not so fashionable, at least in the UK, to go into university for these courses. So there's a general lack of engineering and science graduates anyway. So I think we have to take that into account and encourage generally more interest in engineering and science degrees. Part of that is around industry, part of it will also need government help as well. That brings me on to a second point, really. I think generally this is all helped by government initiatives in the UK, and especially having a clear policy, long-term policy for nuclear. In the past, we've suffered from the cycle of ups and downs in the nuclear industry, as in the America, USA. But now we have a clear long-term policy, and that gives some certainty to people who may wish to start thinking about their career there. I think as well, there is a need for industry and the institutes like the Nuclear Institute to go out and into schools and promote the benefits of a nuclear career to pupils who might not be thinking about it at that point in time. Because it is long term, it is exciting. Even in decommissioning, people think that is the back end of the process. Actually, that can be very stimulating, and many issues come up there. And people can move around the industry into different aspects of it. The other aspect I would suggest is that we have to look at all means to encourage people to go into nuclear engineering, nuclear science, nuclear skills. And some of that is through MPhil, MSc courses, one-year courses, or graduates who have perhaps a general engineering or science background and who may be excited to move into the nuclear industry there. I know of one course in the UK at the engineering department in Cambridge University where we take on board people from wide varieties of science and engineering backgrounds and give them an intense course on nuclear engineering. Thank you.
はい、ありがとうございます。ちょっと確認ですけど、ケンブリッジ大学には原子力工学科はないんですか？
No, it has a department or faculty for engineering, and within that there is a nuclear course, MPhil course is run there for students who wish to take up nuclear from perhaps a broader engineering or science graduate basis.
はい、ありがとうございます。なかなか英国もまあちょっと我々の感覚としてはヨーロッパと違うかなという話があって、実は私シェフィールド大に知ってる日本人ですけど先生がいて、なかなか原子力原子力を一つの学科として立てていくのは難しそうな雰囲気であるというのは聞いておりました。どちらかというとごちゃっとした学科の中からコースみたいな形で原子力を教えているみたいなことは言われてなんですか。ありがとうございます。そしたら、次じゃあフランス、後からまたNDA さんに行きたいと思います。フランスの状況を教えていただけますか。
Yes, thank you very much for the question. It's really a challenge what we are facing now. And at least in France, I will not speak about other countries, but in France we have a competition for engineers, for technicians, for all skills, because there are a lot of changes in cars, in planes, in construction. And so to answer the question if we have enough human resource to develop, if I want to answer in one word, I will say no. Today, no. We don't have enough resource. So we have to attract people to the university or for the technical jobs. In fact, we have enough trainings, we have enough schools, but the schools are not full. You know, some are only half full for some technical trainings. As we put scholarship in place, I have visited a lot of schools, and I know that some schools are, for example, for mechanical maintenance, they have 50 seats in the classroom, and we have only 20 young person in the classroom. This is not enough. So we have really to attract, really also to demonstrate that nuclear is a good industry. Sorry for the other ones, but as we are in a competition, we have to demonstrate that the nuclear is a promising industry. There is a future in the jobs. There are jobs well paid, interesting, with a higher qualification. And when I will take the welder example, the very well-known welder example, if a welder is able to do a welding in nuclear with a nuclear qualification, he is probably able to do a welding in other industry. And the same for scaffolding and for very, let's say, basic jobs. So I think we have to attract, to demonstrate that nuclear is good. And we probably have to also to simplify the processes, because in fact in France, to be able to work, like to have the hands-on, the activity, we have to prove the security, the safety with a lot of signature, and probably we have to simplify to have a shorter time of preparation and a longer time of work on the field. And on the question of do university have enough professors, this is also a very interesting question, because I think we could help university with industrials. Industrials have the knowledge of the real work on the field, the real work on the pipe, on the operation room, and so on. And so it's not only a question of professor in the university, it's also a global ecosystem that we could create to ease the industrial to go in the university and to give some training. It's possible in France, and we are working a lot to facilitate that. That's elder people before retiring go and work with young people in the university and to deliver training. And if we focus very quickly on the advanced reactor, I think we have to create a lot of trainings, because so far in France there is no training on molten salt reactor, there is no training on the lead molten lead reactors. There are some training on sodium lead reactors, because we had several reactors, sodium reactors in France, but not molten lead reactors. So on this specific case of advanced reactor, I think we have to create a new ecosystem of training in France.
はい、そのフランスの場合、多分これテクニシャンの教育だと思うんですけれども、先ほどニュークリアグレードの溶接ができる方は他のところでもという話をされたんですが、そのニュークリアグレードの溶接ができるという教育をした場合、その人にサーティフィケーションかなんかあげて、かつそのサーティフィケーションが他の分野でも生きてくる、有効なんですか？そういう状況でしょうか
？Yes, in France, the entities that deliver the authorization to work in the nuclear is the company that hire the people, not the university, or not for example, in the US, safety, the NRC. It's really the companies that do a training, specific nuclear training, and give an authorization, a nuclear authorization for the people. So we are working with companies to have common training. For example, if we take a welder, sorry, but it's the skills that we have investigated the more. We will create in the next months or years common training and common to several industrial sectors. So we will meet let's say, the naval sector and work with them to define a common set of requirements. And then at the end, the company is able to give a nuclear ability with a specific nuclear add-on or a naval ability with a specific naval add-on. It's a big job because, as I said, there is a competition, so it's not easy to discuss and to say, okay, we will pick up several people for the nuclear sector.
はい、ありがとうございます。それじゃあ、今はどちらかというと原子力全般ということであれなんですが、特定の分野ですね。で、まずは廃炉といいますか、マッキンディング先生にお伺いしたいんですけども、なかなか日本でも廃炉というとちょっと特別扱いかな。特に 1F の廃炉となると、割と東の方は抵抗は少ないかもしれませんけども、西の方の原子力系出た学生というのは、福島がちょっと遠いというのがあるんですけども、なかなか廃炉というのは取っつきづらいというのがあるのかなと思うんですけど、そういう状況でどうでしょうか。そちらで廃炉は同じ原子力の中でも廃炉というのは人気のある方なのかない方なのか。でまた廃炉の人材というか育成しなきゃ、廃炉の人材を充実させなきゃいけないので、何とかして人を廃炉の分野に引き込もうとすることが必要だと思うんですけど、その手段としてはどのようなことをされていますでしょうか。
So thank you for the question. I think in terms of looking here, it is one of attraction. So without commenting, we probably don't have enough engineers and young people entering overall. I think in one of the things that we've had a bit of success with over recent years in the UK is connecting the decommissioning efforts that we have to broader notions of sustainability. So when I think of many of the cohorts of graduates that have joined us recently, the sole motivating factor has been wanting to make a contribution to and affect climate change commitments, net carbon zero, environmental cleanup. And I think we've tried to demonstrate how decommissioning and the NDA group's efforts and the work at Sellafield and elsewhere contributes to the broader industry life cycle. And the idea that really, if we want to build new toys, we have to be able to demonstrate that we can put the old ones away. I think the other thing that has benefited the NDA is that decommissioning kind of just is. It's not a normative thing. We need to get on with decommissioning regardless of whether we like it or not. And getting on with decommissioning is not a statement on new nuclear or new technologies. So for those that wish to be involved with, or perhaps not for new nuclear, can contribute to a ongoing public good, cleaning up without having to make a statement. And actually, a lot of the interesting work challenges fall within. So when I think of some of the challenges that people are working on at Sellafield, that is very interesting in engineering work. It's different to the notion of working on a generating plant or standard maintenance or anything like that. This is solving really complex challenges as simply as possible. And every day looks a little bit different to the last. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing that's perhaps been noted already is that there's a real need to put the right resources into the right area. So it's all well and good. I think probably around the Sellafield site in particular, we've made some real strides in getting young people either through university and then graduate schemes or straight from high school through apprenticeships and more vocational training. We need to make sure we're addressing those into the right area because we only have limited resource, and I think that's for us all. And if we're not careful with how we distribute that, we will not get the maximum benefit from it. The other thing, probably just to note before I finish, and I'm sure Dr. Waitman might wish to speak from his experience as well, is it's really important to recognise so what is a very specialist nuclear skill and what it falls as part of kind of broader construction, broader heavy industry in general, and how we can contribute to that in a way that's beneficial or where we most need it. So I think, as I've said previously, the next lifespan of Sellafield site will be major capital builds. and that is where a lot of our resource will be needed. That is in competition with many other national priorities, and that does require a degree of the policy leadership that, as I think Dr. Waitman mentioned previously as well.
So I just wanted to add, a comment on that was that in general, to attract the young generation, we have to bring the new toys, the new technologies, the enabling technologies. It is, in general, to all aspects of nuclear, and especially so for decommissioning. So when I visited UK actually several years ago, and we looked at some of the places, same thing is true in the United States, that the use of robotics, for example, robotics and virtual reality and those kind of techniques and technologies that are up and coming, and they are being implemented and used in the decommissioning process, they become an attractive tool to get the students interested that, okay, this is not an old chisel and hammer kind of activity. There will be robots, there will be virtual reality training to reduce dose minimization and those kind of efforts. So, the same thing can be used in other fields as well.
Sorry, just a quick add-on on what was said. It's very interesting, robotics, because when you took robotic welding or robotic welders, a traditional welder in France is a technician. A person using a robotic welding machine is an engineer. It's not the same level of qualification.
Perhaps just to draw attention to one of the successes I think we've seen across the old and the new, and across UK and Japan as well. So a few years ago, so we have a very close collaborative relationship with Fukushima Daiichi, TEPCO, NDF, and others. We have a joint program called Long Ops, which is about remote technologies in decommissioning, in fusion, and also digital twins and applications across the two. So that project is worth around £12 million. So £4 million of the funding is from the NDA, £4 million is from TEPCO, £4 million is from an R&D organisation in the UK. That's centred at a research facility in the UK. There's 6 TEPCO engineers, and that is bearing fruit in an area where we're looking to the future applications to the decommissioning activities that we have on, and also working to share time and cost and also the benefits.
はい、ありがとうございます。それぞれの各国の取り組みということでご意見いただきました。ちょっと日本ではやっぱし1F の配慮で確かに VR とかロボットとかどんどん入ってきていると思うんですけれども、なかなかそこら辺の配慮ってまだ普通の商業発電炉の事故を起こしてない商業発電所の廃炉はまだ始まってませんが、なかなか不言文書の廃炉でも、新しい技術も入ってることは入ってるんですけど、そんなにレーザーとかやろうとしてますけど、まだ入ってないという話と、もともとやっぱし環境に考慮した云々という意識は多分廃炉をやってる方にはないような、これは日本でも廃炉がその環境保全に役に立つみたいなイメージはちょっとないかなというふうに思いますので、それは日本の廃炉の戦略にも入れていこうがいいかなと思いますし、そもそもとしてやっぱり新しいおもちゃって話が出ましたけれども、やっぱり新しい技術がやっぱ入ってこないと若い人は入ってこないかなとは思います。ありがとうございました。続きまして、さらにもう一つちょっと難しい領域のその規制ですね。規制の方もそんなに人材はいっぱいないと思いますし、福井大は結構規制庁に入ってはいるんですけれども、なかなか旧帝大で出た学生さんがそんなに規制に行くかなという気もしますけれども、規制の方はどうやって人材を確保しようとしていますか。まずは日本の例でお願いします。
はい、規制庁によりますので、まずはちょっと規制庁の話からさせていただきますとも、今職人採用に直接私携わってるわけじゃないんで、ですけども、発足以来の状況をですねずっと見てみると、もうご想像の通りですね、1F の事故があり、それで非常にネガティブなイメージがあり、 若くて良い人材の確保にはすっごくやっぱ苦労しているというのが実情だと思います。おそらく新しい組織なんで、まだまだ知名度が高い低いということもあるでしょうし、あとその規制、要するにその普通の省庁だと規制もあり推進もあり、非常にバラエティに富んでいるわけですね、ある分野においては。ところが規制庁というのは規制しかやってないということでありますのでね、非常にその固いイメージがあるし、ネガティブなイメージも非常に強いんじゃないかと、いろんな不利な条件が揃って日本の規制の方の人材育成は非常に苦労しているというのが実情で、あります。で、じゃあ具体的にですね、どういうその、対策を取っているのかというとですね、結局そういうネガティブなことをですね、根本的にひっくり返そうといってもなかなかこれは難しい面があって、でもやっぱりその原子力っていうのは時代によって随分変わりましたけれども、まだまだ将来的に希望のある分野でもありですね、技術的にも非常に面白いという分野も多々ありますので、そういうことをできるだけ学生の方々、それから中途採用もありますので、他の分野ですね、原子力以外の分野でもですね、そういう魅力をしっかり知ってもらうように、その活動はね、相当非常に不利な状況にあるので、相当一生懸命人事当局はやってます。はい、でも苦労しているというのが実情であります。それから政府全体の話から言うとですね、それは原子力を扱っているのは経済産業省とそれから文部科学省があると思うんですけれども、ここはですね、実はおそらく行政官なので、そういう意味ではあまり苦労してないですよね。おそらくそれはローテーションで回せばいいだけの話なので、それは苦労してないと思うんですが、政府全体から言うと公務員の死亡者が激減をしているという方がよっぽど政府全体としては心配なところだろうというふうに思います。これは規制も含めてですね。それからやっぱり一番その人材確保に大事だと思われるのは、やはりその将来の夢とか、あとは将来の希望ですよね。将来やはりその仕事のなんていうんですかね、その先がなかなか見えないというところにはやはり非常に目が向きづらいと、それから希望しづらいというところがありますので、さっきの試験研究論の話もそうですし、次世代革新論もそうですけども、将来やはりその夢があると、それから希望があるという動きは非常にこれは人材確保に大きい動きだろうというふうに思います。ですから政府もそれから原子力産業界もそれはこぞってですね、やはり原子力の魅力とか原子力の将来、そういうものをできるだけ語るという機会を増やして、将来のやっぱり夢があるということをやっぱり訴えていくべきではないかというふうには思います。以上です。
ありがとうございます。原子力の中でも、仮に原子力学から出た中でも学生でもなかなか規制庁に行くとなると、そういうのが好きな学生はいるかなとは思うんですが、それまでその原子力のその再稼働とかで必ず規制庁がなんか対抗する側にいるという意識がどうしても学生に奪っちゃってますんで、できるだけそういうことはなくて、規制も重要な原子力の平和利用を維持するための一つの手段であるというのはそういうふうに教えているつもりではいるんですけれども、どうしてもそういうのが表に立って、なかなか原子力を出た工学から出た学生で規制庁に行くというのは難しいのか、むしろその原子力でない学生の方が割と抵抗がなくていくのかなというようなこともちらっとは思っています。ありがとうございます。
はい、よろしいですか。はい、少し追加で、今他の分野という話が出ましたので、まさに規制の分野でもそうでありまして、規制庁は普通の行政官ですかね、規制の活動をしている、仕事をしている職種の人と、それから技術基盤といって研究職も実は取ってまして、その研究職はですね、これはやっぱりきっちりとしたやっぱり専門的なその基礎がないと、これはもう全く役に立たないので、それは原子力にしろ他の分野にしろ専門性がもう極めて高度なものが必要です。ただ一般のですね規制活動においては、その原子力をもちろん知ってる方がよろしいんですけど、でなくてもですね、後からこれはいくらでも補充することができるというのが、規制活動とか規制の業務だろうと思います。したがってむしろ大事なのは機械にしろ電気にしろ科学にしろ、地質にしろですね、それぞれのところでしっかりとした技術的な基礎があるということと、さらに大事なのは原子力に関して非常に意欲があるというか使命感があるというか、やっぱりこれは 人のその命とか財産とか環境を守るということに関するやっぱりその強い使命感のような方ですね、そういうのを持つということが最も大事なことではないかというふうには思います。
はい、ありがとうございます。まあそういった学生がいればぜひ規制庁に行くように進めたいと思います。すみません、じゃあアメリカの規制の状況で人材育成というか、そもそも人材は十分でしょうかどうか、レイモンドさんお願いできますでしょうか。
Yes, thank you for the question. In the United States, in the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, my office, Office of Research, we do recruit and have programs to recruit bachelor's degrees, master's, PhDs, and I'd like to take off on some of the comments that Professor Uden had earlier on, and I know Professor Uden, we provide some scholarships and fellowships throughout the United States, including the University of Illinois, and they're one of the top tier universities that we look at for our grants program and our recruiting efforts. Part of what our task is in the Office of Research is get the regulator, in this case the NRC, ready for new technologies. And the only way we can do that is by getting top talent into our organization, and that's part of that you do by making the work interesting as well. And I did want to take off of some of the other speakers mentioned about it's just not nuclear programs that we target. It's non-nuclear because many of the disciplines are you can kind of grow into the nuclear, whether it's risk analysts, for example, they may are certainly used in industries other than nuclear, materials engineers, fire protection engineers, and the list goes on. I think we also employ human factors engineers and psychologists to help with understanding how humans behave in the nuclear environment. What we do at the NRC is we try to have university champions within our own organization that many times they're alumni of the universities they go to, and stay connected to the universities, the programs that are being run there to attract and encourage students to work for a regulator. Some programs that we have in the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, one program that we have to help recruit students or graduates, and as Professor Uden indicated, we're competing for the same graduates as industry, as the U.S. national labs, and university professors for that matter. And so we have to come up with ways to attract those. It's in the government, in the U.S. government, it sometimes it isn't pay that attracts them, but I really think what a main thing, we have to make the work interesting, and that's part of what I try to do in the Office of Research, is make the work interesting. We have a program in the NRC called the University Nuclear Leadership Program, and we have about $16 million each year that we provide fellowships and scholarships and faculty grants to help develop programs, maintain programs at U.S. universities. And we also have a newer program we started a few years ago called Mission Related R&D, where we provide grants to provide to faculty and in turn students on topic areas that are of interest to us. And that program's been quite successful. So you're having universities and principal investigators and their students working on topic areas that are of interest to the regulator. And by doing that, I think we're kind of opening the eyes to students that say, hey, there is interesting work that the regulator does. I know particularly in the Office of Research, and that gets the students exposed to what's of interest to the NRC. And we have seminars with those those projects and exchange questions and discussion with the students and faculty to help give us more exposure to the students and the students more exposure to us. And but it is a constant. We have to work on it constantly because, like was said, the supply, the demand's higher than the supply right now for qualified students and graduating students. But I'm optimistic. I think the universities, when they see the demand out there in the U.S., they their programs to that. I think they're doing a really good job of that. But we got to on the traditional nuclear heavyweights, if you will, universities in the U.S. and expand that to other quality universities that may not have a nuclear program because we need all of those disciplines. So I'm optimistic. We have to be ready for these new technologies, new technologies being adapted to the nuclear industry, not just new advanced reactor types, but as was mentioned before, the use of digital twins could be the use of artificial intelligence in the operation of nuclear plants now and in the future. So it's an exciting time, and the education and having the educated and qualified workforce is really a top priority of the regulator as well. Thanks.
はい、ありがとうございます。ここまでもう1、2、3あたりひっくるめて各国の事情あるいはさらに廃炉と規制の分野での皆さんどこも人間が足りないので人材育成事業をやってて、手は動かすわお金はつぎ込むわという活動をされているというのが分かりました。ここまでで、フロアあるいはオンラインの参加の方で何か質問、コメントとかございます。山口先生お願いいたします。
いろいろありがとうございます。議論を聞いていると、その今必要としている人材ってどんな人材なのかっていうのがなんとなく分からなくなってきたこともあるんですが、ニュークリアのディグリーを持っている人なのか、あるいは原子力に対して理解のある人なのか、どっかに専門性を持っている人なのかで、それで質問はですね、確かに今こういうものが必要というのは十分私もそう思います。で、ただ革新炉がこれから本格的に入っていくのは2030年から50年で、そうすると今から多分20年後ぐらいを見据えてどういう人材が、あるいはどういうふうなパブリックの見方が出てくるのかっていうのが必要なんだと思います。で、それで皆さんにお伺いしたいのは、今から20年ぐらいを見据えてっていうと、言ってみれば小学生とかそういうところから入ってくるわけなんですが、どういう世代の人たちにどういうアプローチをやればいいのか、それから専門性っていうのは本当に大学でやるのがいいのか、もう少し先でやるのがいいのか、つまりその世代に合わせてどういうことを教えて教育をすればいいのかっていうのをだいたい2030年40年頃の姿を想像しつつ教えていただきたいと思います。
ありがとうございます。もうちょっと時間があれなんで、じゃあアメリカ、フランス、英国と一カ国一つお一人ずつということで、じゃあ宇治先生お願いいたします。
So in my talk, I think I had mentioned briefly that there are three stages that we can look at as the demand of the workforce. The first one is the demand for the design engineers to help design the advanced reactors and go through the licensing process, and that is a very high level of skill that is needed, which is immediately needed right now. Whether it is engineers, whether it is master's students, PhDs, all of that is going to be necessary. The next stage will be the development, the construction phase, and that point, the workforce development will require all the trades, for example, the welders and the pipe fitters and the boilers and that skill will be needed much more at that stage. And then will come the operators and the people who will be operating the reactors, as you just said, maybe 10 years from now, 15 years from now. So all of these are needed, and there's a very definite timeline that is going to go along with this. We will have to target appropriately. Right now, given the pressure that we see on the number of graduates that we are graduating, and very quickly, like hot potatoes, they go and get hired, it seems to be the ability to fulfill the expectations and requirements for existing fleets, one. And the second one is to supply enough to TerraPowers and X Energies and Kairos and so on, all the new developing companies that are developing reactors, and the NRC, the regulatory body that needs to license them. This is the immediate need. But at the same time, I mean, we need to start developing those welders, for lack of any other example, for the next stage. A lot of delays that took place at the Vogtle plant, I mean, this was mostly, a lot of it was because of workforce limitation. They just did not have the right people at the right time, with the right license, with the right skill set, certification, and the project kept getting delayed. That was at least one of the main reasons. So we need to plan for that right now. I think it can be done. Last time we had the need for, the 70s and 80s. It was not necessarily because of the lack of availability of workforce that delayed some of the projects at that time. So I think it can be addressed.
はい、ありがとうございます。そしたら、イギリスの例、どちらで、また、
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. I think one of the issues that will help is a continuity of projects going forward. I think whilst it's right that now you need design engineers and design scientists for advanced nuclear reactors, now the numbers aren't as great as perhaps we may think. It seems to me that they are sufficient at the present time, and I know the regulator has sufficient resources to address the advanced nuclear reactor program here. It helps also that the government is selecting down technologies into some that it's going to promote. In the UK, in the past, the 1960s, 1970s, whilst we had a lot of projects going on, we suffered from having too many different types of projects going on. And even when we honed in on Magnox and advanced gas-cooled reactors, we, as good designers, we like to reinvent them every time we had a new project. So I think continuity is important. I think also a generic approach is important that will reflect on the amount of resources that you'll need. And then you only have to deal with site-specific aspects as you go forward. And I think that the regulators can help in that respect by having a generic approach to assessing cases and also helping each other in their assessments of the same sort of technologies there. I think that the wide range of resources that are needed as the projects move forward are helped by other projects, because as you go into construction, the number of specialist resources that you need will be less. And from other nuclear projects, they can come across if the timing is appropriate, but also from other industries, construction construction workers can cross over from other infrastructure projects, which is both an opportunity but also a threat because at least in the UK, there are several major infrastructure projects going ahead as well. So I think generally we have to look at it as a continuity of resourcing across industry, the nuclear industry, and also wider industry, depends on the state of the project there. In terms of the regulator resourcing, if I may just respond to some of that, in the UK, because we have a goal-setting regime, then the numbers of regulators that we need is less than perhaps in a more prescriptive regime. So, for example, there are about 400 in ONR at the present time. There are about 400 scientists, engineers who tend to be very experienced and come across from industry in mid-career rather than at the start of their careers, although we do contribute to graduate programs as well in the UK regulatory system. So it depends on your regulatory approach, what type of, how many resources you need. One of the things that I think is important for advanced nuclear reactors recruitment is, especially at this stage when it's design engineers we need, is that it is very intellectually challenging, both for industry and for the regulator. And that can act as an excitement, a spur for people to join in this very interesting program. Thank you.
はい、ありがとうございます。結構あれですか、イギリスの規制は明るいというか、すいません。じゃあ、フランスの状況を教えていただければと思います。今どういう人材を出せばいいか。
If I may add, the other thing we did in 2011 to 2013 was set up the regulatory body as an independent statutory corporation so that we could attract and retain the resources we needed for future new build, thinking into the future. And that gave us greater independence and greater ability to pay salaries that were attractive to getting the best people in that we could. Thank you.
それではあまり時間ありませんけど、フランスの状況。
Yes, it's a very tough question, because we cannot have a global approach. I agree fully with what was said by my colleague about continuity, differentiate of different level of skills. If I take the example of France, today, the really missing skills are technician one. The guy who go on the field to do welding, maintenance, and so on. Because we have a very huge program to do the LTO, to do the long-term operation on the existing plants, and this is the biggest volume that we have for the moment. If we take another example is that for the designing of the EPR2, we intend to have finished the design at the first concrete in 2027. So on this project, we really miss some design engineers, maybe not specialized in nuclear, but design engineers for construction, for piping, and so on. And the last example is the advanced reactor. On this type of project, we really miss some core engineers, people able to design a molten salt loop, a molten salt pump, molten lead pump, because these pumps are not existing today in France. So we have to design to design them and then to fabricate them. So to sum up quickly, for the moment, till probably 2025 or 2027, we really miss some technicians, people able to work on the field. this is a big volume. The second important volume is design engineers to be able to have the finished design of EPR2 in 2027, and maybe the smallest number is for advanced reactor. But if we look at the time of training, for a technician in France is 2 years after high school or 3 years after high school. For design engineers is 5 years, and to have a specialist of core, molten salt core, I guess it's maybe 10 years. So we really have to forecast all these needs in one approach, and that's why in France we have this match approach I described during my presentation.
はい、ありがとうございます。マッチプロも結局出てきました。すいません、安田岡さん、どうぞ。あんまり時間がありませんが。
ありがとうございます。先ほどの原子力規制のその人材育成について議論があったと承知しております。ただ先ほどの議論はその新しい新規採用とかですね、そういった話にもちろんフォーカスされましたけれども、山口先生が先ほどおっしゃったように革新炉開発というのは非常に長いタームが必要なものですから。その組織自体のですね、規制当局の組織自体の多分ある意味キャパシティビルディングっていうんですかね、能力を上げなくちゃいけないっていうのがやはり非常に大事なのかなというふうに見ております。その意味で今日も少し議論ありましたけれども、例えばアメリカの NRC ですと、ある SMR がですね、その運転開始のもう数年前からデザインサーティフィケーションを取ってですね、あるいはそのアメリカのその産業団体であるその NEI とよく対話をされていらっしゃったりとか、あるいは私もイギリスの例ですと、私も昨日少しご紹介したように高温ガス炉などですね、革新炉 SMR などについても早めにそのイギリスの規制当局が設計主体である当事者のですね、研究機関であるとか、そういったメーカーであるとかと結構よく意見交換をされて、多分そういった取り組みを通じて合理的というかなんというか、その早い非常に不確実性がある意味高いような、その複数の露呈があるような次世代革新炉に対する規制のそのスムースというかですね、着実な規制のビルトがつながっていくのかなというふうに思うんですけれども、こういった動きにもし何かその日本の今後のその規制当局のキャパシティビルディング、規制当局のという組織自体のその人材育成というのをどういうふうに進めていくようななんか示唆があるのかなということで、もしなんかご示唆がありましたら、ご見解ありましたらお伺いしたいなと思います。
はい、大村さんお願いします。
はい、ご質問ありがとうございます。ですね、まずちょっと現状を申し上げると、その規制庁の中のその人材の専門分野というか、要するに担当している分野には極めて大きな偏りがありまして、要するに発電所に大半の人員がいるということになります。で、それ以外の例えば研究類であるとか廃棄物であるとかサイクルとかっていうのはですね、その審査っていうのもそのポツポツとしてかない、再処理とか非常にでかいんで長くやってますけど、そういう意味ではその発電量が定常的にずっとあるのに対して、他の分野っていうのは極めて数が少なかったり短期間であったりというケースがあるので、人材の偏りってすごく大きいんですね。したがってその配置には実は内部の人員配置では非常に苦労しているという状況があります。翻って革新炉とかですね、今後のことを考えると、今おっしゃったようにですね、先々を見てどういう人材を確保しておく、その時に仕事がなければその仕事がないんで配属ができませんけど、将来どういう専門性なりですね、そのスキルを持った人間をどこに確保しておくのかという観点は極めて重要だというふうに思います。時間的な余裕っていうのはおそらく少しはあるでしょうから、それを見据えてしっかりやっていくということかなと思います。ただ革新炉というのは炉は炉なので、そういう意味では今までの経験、発電炉で培ったものというのが、それは相当利用できるのではないかということなので、全く全然別の技術をやるということではないんじゃないかとは思っております。はい、以上です。
はい、ありがとうございます。もうあと10分切っちゃいまして、残りの議題とか話し合う議論する時間は多分ないと思いますんで、少し早めに終わってもいいかなと思いますが、ここら辺で締めたいと思います。ここまで要するに、人材は足りているかというところから始めまして、いわゆるその人材確保の方法はと いうことで、各国、それから規制と廃炉の分野でご意見をいただきました。やはりどこも人材は足りてないというのは事実でして、それを挙げて各機関いろんな手法で、政府も産業界も大学も含めて、おそらく多分一緒になって、個別にやるか一緒にやるかは別として一丸となって学生若い人にアピールしていくんだなと思いますし、やっぱりその中で夢とか、あるいは具体的にはおもちゃという言葉出ましたけれども、新しい技術とかを出していかないと若い人は入ってこないのかなということです。それからちょっと私も意外だったのは、原子力がその環境保全に役に立つというのはもう理屈前々から言われてたことなんですが、その中でも廃炉というのがそういった資源の有効利用とかに結びつくというのはちょっと日本としてはそんなに強い感覚はなかったと思うので、今後敦賀でも廃炉がどんどん産業として始まっていくと思いますから、そこら辺も込みで若い人を集めていきたいなと思います。あと残り7分となりました。何かフロアの方からございますでしょうか。よろしいですか。どうしてもここは聞いておきたいとかいうことがありましたらお願いいたします。オンラインの方も特にあれから質問が出てきていない。どうぞ。
Hi, more just a comment about science education starting early, and I think each country has kind of a different philosophy on how to educate, first and second and third graders. I think science education has to start very early and has to be very clear. For instance, don't just teach that there's a greenhouse effect, but show with data that there's a greenhouse effect in global warming. Because if it's just an assertion without data, then it becomes a political issue. But if it's shown with data and kids are taught to understand the data, then I think it's a better selection, better outcome.
はい、ありがとうございます。そのやり方がどこまで小さい学年に、小学生のどこまで、もう高校中学年多分できると思うんですけど、小学生のどのレベルにそういった教育ができるかというのは重要で、実はここ福井県の連弾では JA 敦賀さんが中心となって小学生相手にそういった科学のサイエンスの基礎の部分をもうすでに始めています。年間100件を超える出張授業を JA さんがやられてるんですけど、これまではその小学生に対する科学の初歩の授業と、その上のエネルギーとか原子力とかのテクニックな話、工学の話と高校生に対してそういう話を始めてるんですけど、間をつなぐその授業というのはこれまでなかったので、そこら辺は我々も含めて福井大学とかも含めて課題かなと思ってますので、そこら辺これからもやっていきたいなと思います。どうもありがとうございました。それではもう残り4分ということになりましたので、一応これでこのパネルディスカッション終わりたいと思います。どうも朝からありがとうございました。
ありがとうございます。座長をお務めいただきました宇野先生、そしてこちらの会場並びにオンラインからご参加いただきましたパネリストの皆様、ありがとうございました。今一度大きな拍手をお送りください。